whatever's good for you. So this is sort of a beginning level intro to mold making and then mostly casting. How many people in here have ever made a mold before? So we got a few, that's good. How many people have cast anything in a mold? How many people have ever made ice in an ice tray? Okay, all of you have cast something. That's as hard as it is. It's actually really pretty easy once you get the, feel of the materials and things like that. So, what's your name? My name is Jennifer. Sorry. I'm Jenny, cosplayer. I actually hate sewing and I love making armor and things like that. So this is what I love doing because it feels like more instant gratification. But I do both things. So yeah, I hope you guys, I think maybe I'll call some of you up to help me with different parts of this if you don't mind getting your hands a little dirty. Of course, if you're wearing like a nice costume, you might not want to. It'll be messy. But so first off, we're going to talk about mold making itself. So basically, the stuff that we're going to do today will be resin casting. So the molds I'm going to be making are softer molds. So they're made to be bendy and nice. A lot of times, if your final product, you want to make something that is bendy, like you're making a face piece out of latex, your mold wouldn't be like this. It would probably be a stone mold. So different type. Today we're going to be trying to cast something that is hard at the end, and so we're using something bendy so that we can get it out of the mold. Usually you wouldn't make something hard in a hard mold because you'll break the mold when you bust it out of there. So I really prefer smooth-on products. They've got a website. It looks intimidating, confusing when you look at it, but there's lots of information and tutorials on there. They're a really great company, and they make all sorts of different stuff. I really like the Mold Max series, which is what a lot of these are, because you can brush it on, it holds a vertical surface, that kind of thing. The downfall to these, as far as showing you guys how they work, is that usually when you make a mold like this, it has to cure overnight. So that would be really boring, guys. Like, hey, I poured something, let's never talk about it again. So we're going to actually talk about this product today for mold making. It's called Amazing Mold Putty. It's pretty amazing. So this stuff's nice because it actually cures pretty darn fast. It cures in 20 minutes. So this is something that you wouldn't necessarily use if you did like a clay sculpt, because this is something that, it's a two-part putty, and you mix these together in equal parts, and then you push it against something that's hard. So usually I use this when I'm casting something that I've either found as an object and I want to use for a costume, but it's not going to work. So my example is this coat hanger with all this decorative filigree. So this filigree works really nice, but let's say I have a costume where there's like a piece that would wrap around my arm slightly and it's filigreed. Maybe I don't want to sculpt that. This looks pretty darn good, but I can't really wrap metal around my arm. Maybe it's too heavy. So what I would do is make a mold of this, cast it in resin, and make sure the resin's bent to the size that I want, and then it's done. Sounds complicated, it's really easy. So for the push mold itself, do we have a volunteer who can use clay? You are on it. You are the fastest in the wig, the gray wig and back. So this stuff works exactly like Play-Doh. It feels like kind of, come on, what's your name?
Abby.
Abby? I feel like I need to like you. Okay, Abby. So basically, this is the hardener, and this is, the base part. So you want to grab a ball, you grab the hardener, try and get a ball about equal size to this. Feels pretty weird. Kind of like,
My fingers are tiny.
it feels kind of like, what's that stuff you like stick posters to the wall with? Yes, it feels like that, guys. And when we're done with this, I'll pass this around if you guys want to stick your fingers in it. To each their own. So I usually make these into balls, and then I hold them next to each other. It's a very scientific way to see. So I think we need to try even more. Now, you could have a scale and kind of weigh them out or whatever, but for this, it's pretty forgiving. So these balls look pretty easy. All right, so now let's make them into snakes. Snakes. All right, so the way you mix these down, it sets in 20 minutes. sets in 20 minutes, but it really sets up in probably 3 or 4 minutes. So I usually try and mix them up pretty quick. So if you'll take both of those, hold them side by side, push them together, and make a twist with them. And then fold them and twist again. Perfect. And now go nuts just smushing. This is very scientific. No one can do this. You are now a trained professional. And basically, the nice thing about them being white and yellow is keep going. You're going to keep mixing it until you don't see white and yellow anymore. It becomes a lighter yellow color. And a lot of times I'll do like a kneading technique where I'll kind of push, almost like you're making like cookie dough or like a baker. I don't know, I'm not a baker, but I imagine that's how they do it. Like flip it up in the air. You're doing good. So while she's kneading this, I can be lazy for this one. You'll already have your piece out and set down on a flat surface. And once this is mixed up and the color's pretty even, you're essentially going to make a ball out of it. Feels pretty good. All right, roll into a ball. And then you want to start at the highest point of the surface. Now, this is actually smaller than what we need to cover this whole thing, but we'll just say we're casting maybe the top part is all we want. So just set the ball on the top, and then all you're going to do is push down. Perfect. And then I'll just go around the edges and kind of push down the edges to make sure they kind of meet the flat surfaces. And give it tiny little touches to make sure it's in all the grooves. And then you leave it alone for 20 minutes. You made a mold. Super easy. You did fantastic. Here, you guys want to stick fingers if you want to pass these around. Just don't mix them together because they'll set up. So yeah, we'll set this guy to the side. He might be done at the end. We can take a look at him. So, like a cooking show from the oven, I pulled out a mold I've already made of this particular piece. So to make a mold about this size, it probably takes the majority of one of those containers. So this particular type of mold I usually use for smaller pieces, like if I'm casting like jewelry or little pieces, or this might be as big as I get. Because it also gets a little unwieldy when you're rolling like a giant ball. If I'm casting larger pieces, I'll usually use the smooth-on products that take a little while to set up. So something to know about this mold is since we're going to be pouring resin into it, and because this has these little like hangers at the bottom, there are these little sort of gaps coming down where if I pour the resin in, they're all just going to like pool out and go to the side. So a really handy thing to have just in your workshop or wherever is some clay. And so again, I don't want to like permanently change or alter this mold, but I want to make sure to plug those holes. So I'll usually just take a little bit of clay and cram it in those holes. Easy peasy. And it never has to look really nice because anytime you cast with resin, you can always sand it and clean up any edges. So again, you just want to kind of fill these little vents at the bottom and you'll be good to go for casting a piece. So there we go. We have a mold that is prepped and ready to go. Now, a lot of times, especially when you make hard molds, you want to use a mold release, which is usually a type of spray, or it's usually like a silicone spray or something like that, that you spray in and it kind of helps make sure that whatever you're casting in it will easily release and it's not stuck in your mold. The thing that I really like about this particular putty, it sounds gross, but it kind of sweats a little. So it almost has like its own natural lubricant, so to speak, and things don't tend to bond to it. It's also very durable and very, flexy, so you can usually peel it out of whatever piece. So that's it. We've made a mold. That easy. Let's talk about casting, which is the real fun stuff. So when casting, you're essentially pouring plastic. Today we're going to be using smooth-on 320 cast. I'm using this because it sets up really fast, so it's good for demonstrations. Smooth-on has a lot of different products. They sell a resin that's onyx. It comes black to begin with. This one, when it cures white, but you can tint it with dyes, different dyes. They also sell a product that's clear if you need something to come up, that's clear, you want to kind of tint and it has sort of an opaque or translucent look. again, they've got tons of different products, and usually with all of these, they have a fast and a slow version. So fast, to me, when I started, always sounded the best, because I'm like, it's fast, I'll have it immediately, I don't want to wait. The advantages to using a slow set is that it gives what you're casting time to degas, and that just means all the bubbles that form, like when you're mixing it, the longer it has, the longer those bubbles have to kind of work their way out and not be in your mold anymore. So there's a lot of advantages to going for something that's set slower, but we're not going to do that today. No, we go for fast. So for this one, does anyone want to come assist me? A volunteer? Beautiful lady in the white wig, Dana, maybe? Yes? All right, so come on up. You look pretty small, have some small gloves. So I always work with gloves because no matter how good you get at this, you're going to end up with something on your hand at some point, or at least I will. The type of gloves that I tend to use, or just keep in my shop, are 100% latex free. The reason I do this is sometimes I'll cast with silicone, and silicone hates latex. I don't know, they're like an Apple computer and a Windows machine. They don't always get along well. So I usually keep gloves that kind of work for anything that I'm using. Good. Feel ready for this? Have you cast or molded anything before? Yes, ice. Okay, well we have a pro. I'm gonna go sit down. You know. All right. So when I do this, this is a 1-to-1, which means equal parts. You're gonna mix them together. This blue one is your base. The yellow one's your hardener. I use a food scale, and I always measure, and that's how I know if I'm exactly 1-to-1. Now, if you don't have a food scale, they're not expensive, but maybe you don't want to invest just yet. You're just trying it out. A good kind of cup to get is this kind of cup, one that has like ridges. This is a terrible example, but you can get small ones that have ridges too. And then what you can do is sort of fill up to a particular line on each and kind of eye it and make sure, and then you'll know you're 1-to-1. It's really important to get everything to be perfectly even, because if, for example, you don't put enough hardener in, it will never set. It'll always be kind of tacky or gummy. If you put too much hardener in, it can just mess up the whole chemical thing, and it cannot set, and it kind of does a lot of weird different things. Or it can set and be hard, but then it's more fragile. I've had things just kind of like shatter. So yes, in order to get our even 1-to-1, for the scale, I always put an empty cup on first to zero it out so that it doesn't take the weight of the cup into consideration when we're weighing it out. Would you like to pour us, let's say, let's do like 0.5. If we have too much, we pour more money. That's it, 0.6, 0.7. We'll just match 0.7, we're fine. You'll also end up with this amazing skill if you start casting the same thing over and over. This will be 0.7 as well, yep. You'll get to where you can just eye and you'll know. I cast like 20 of the same little eyeballs recently, and I could pour like 0.2 without even looking. No fear, keep going. And for me, if I ever err on the higher side, I'll always put a little more hardener than just the base, because I'd rather make sure to kick than not to.